Appreciate everybody coming today. You've got your minutes from our April 18th meeting before you.
Move the approval.
We've got a motion for approval. To hear a second.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Ms. Carter.
Yeah, on the minutes, Ed.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scott asked about the marketing for the opening event and how much marketing is being done in the diverse communities, and I just wanted to kind of make that notation in there.
Would that be appropriate in, let's see.
We had a committee report on the grand opening. Maybe we put it in there.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Any of the corrections or additions? All those in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We've got a couple cards here. For speaking, we'll start with Lou Ray. 604 Port Royal. You're not here to talk about the lights, are you?
No, sir. We love the lights. Love the lights.
Thank you, sir.
Seriously. Mr. Chairman, trustees, thank you. I served as your EBO contract compliance officer for about a year and a half. First 6 months was really busy. The last year I haven't had much to do, and my contract expired in March of this year. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you. I was honored to do the little bit that I did. I don't claim credit for having accomplished that much, but I was kind of a mediator on standby if and when needed. And I really enjoyed the association. I wanted to also thank you and your predecessors for doing what you've done to make this project a reality. You trustees and your predecessors have been much maligned, and I think very undeservedly. So you have accomplished a great project in a short period of time. The minority participation has been maybe 20 times what it has been in any previous project locally, and I just congratulate you for it. It's no small miracle. If there's anything else I can do for you, I'd be honored to step in and help, but I just want to come by and bid adieu and say thank you and congratulations.
I think you just fired us, Mr. Ray. We appreciate everything you did. I know you attended a lot of meetings.
And may I add something? The professionals that you've had, I'm speaking particularly of Ed and Nicole, not the paid people like myself, have just done a fabulous job, and I wanted to thank them for that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ray, and I know you put your time in the barrel there, and we appreciate it. And we have a lot of people to thank for getting to where we are and for the Wahoos winning last night. With that, we'll go on to the next open forum, and John Rigsby.
Thank you, John Rigsby, President, CEO of Minority Hiring Place. I have been the contractor of record for Hoare Construction on the employment services side since we began Maritime Park project. We've been working diligently with minority contractors to bring Maritime Park to life. Unfortunately, on the last part of this project, we became involved with a company that was responsible for the hardscapes project. That is inclusive of all sidewalks and all steps and so forth that you're walking on when you go out to Maritime Park. Presently, we are owed $104,000, and I have been out of $104,000 for quite some time. The last payment I received on that $104,000 was the end of February. After promises to pay and after our efforts behind the scenes to mitigate the damage and fallout that comes from these kinds of antics. With assistance from Mr. Hawthorne, we have had quite a number of meetings and conversations with the contractor, which is Morley Hardscapes out of Atlanta, and with the contractor that we backed out on the Maritime Park, which is affordable concrete. Much of none of those payments have come our way. So unfortunately, today and every day that I go without payment, more and more damage is done to my business, and my business says. That's very, very unfortunate, because we have worked so diligently to ensure that minority participation was there. Not only that minority participation was there, that we did some of the financing behind some of the other companies that you see on the project. It is not up to us to ballyhoo our efforts. We're not here to pontificate about the work that we've done. I really am not interested in that. What I'm interested in is an effort, after being informed by Mr. Hawthorne that they can no longer help us in the mediation of this process, and we cannot move formally to mediation because Mr. Ray and Mr. Hawthorne's contracts are up. We're being forced to go only one route, which is where we were trying not to go. We want to end Maritime Park and our participation in Maritime Park on a much positive note, in the same way that we began Maritime Park. Successful business, successful operations, learning to coalition build with each other, network and build new strong business relationships. Unfortunately, we're having to really actually move into a whole nother direction, and what we'd like the CMPA to do is assist us, whether that be reactivating Mr. Hawthorne and Mr. Ray to work with us to get those dollars off of the street and help us move forward. So I'm waiting for some direction from you, and I'll hear from you.
Mr. Rigsby, one question. Who is your contract with?
My contract is with Affordable Concrete. I'm the actual one who introduced Affordable Concrete to Morley. Actually, Morley wanted to put the contract in my name. I am not a concrete contractor. It's not what I am.
You perform work for Affordable Concrete?
I actually did most of the financing of the labor force and the labor contract for Affordable.
And for that, Affordable owes you $104,000.
And for that, Morley and Affordable owe me $104,000.
And besides Affordable, you're saying Morley?
Morley contractors.
Who actually contracted with Magi, with HORE?
Morley.
Okay. And have they been paid?
Yes.
Mr. Hawthorne, maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yes, this is a very unfortunate situation. To give you some background, you'll find that Morley Atlanta Company, as part of the EBO participation, named the minority contractors Affordable, and Ms. Rhonda is here. And what has occurred is that Morley has, I'm just to be frank, they have nothing in the game except for one manager on the ground here and the cost of the equipment, just to put the stuff in place. The city has paid for the materials. Affordable Concrete has provided the labor. Mr. Rigsby has provided the financing to pay that labor. And what we have is, I feel, is a bad faith contractor that is really taking advantage of the situation. We tried to have mediation when the last area of my last month of my contract. We had discussions, and Morley made certain promises in those discussions to make payments, at least to get partially covered them. They have followed through on none of it. I think that they are trying to take advantage of some local contractors, and I understand that their profit and overhead margin in that contract is in excess of 20% on $1 million contract. The situation is such that Morley has not paid. Rhonda, when's the last time that you guys got paid? And John? February. Since February. And this is a major problem. And as your EBO consultant, I think we have a clear violation of the EBO program, the process, and I feel that, in fact, that this contractor has taken advantage of two small minority businesses in this town, and it is not, at this point, has not been responsive at all. They have not responded to Mr. Rigsby's calls. They have not responded to Rhonda's calls in regards to that. They hadn't responded to mine. Unfortunately, after taking some advisement from the executive director, and he correctly advised us that it would not be in our scope because of the terminations, or not termination, but the expirations of the contracts with Mr. Ray and I, that we would get involved as a participant, and that was a very correct. I think this is one that's going to go to litigation. I think this is one that is clearly in the hands of a contractor that took advantage. I know Mike has tried to work very closely with them, and unfortunately his hands are tied because he has a contract with Morley, and he can't overstep his bounds and get between a sub to a subs contract. So this is one that we're looking for some guidance from, but in my professional opinion, clearly this is one where there's been a violation of the EBO process, and in fact an egregious violation of the good faith efforts of Affordable Concrete and Mr. John Rigsby.
Mr. Murdy.
Has Hoare paid Morley?
Well, I think Mike can speak more specifically to that.
I guess, first of all, I think we need to hear the rest of the story.
Okay.
You're getting half of it. What has been represented is correct. Magi contract with Morley for the site concrete work. And in the effort to participate in the EBO program, they went and contracted with Affordable Concrete on a unit price per square foot, per linear foot basis, okay? And I think the part that we're missing here is that Affordable, in reality, has spent way more producing the work than they're bringing in for revenue. So that would be like me going $1 million over my GMP and saying, oh guys, I went over, I need $1 million. So we need to consider that part first. Also, Morley will be paid for their February pay request tomorrow. We just received their last piece of paperwork yesterday. We have them in the pipeline to be paid, and it's my understanding, I talked to the Morley representative before I came over here. He will be issuing a joint check sometime midweek next week to Affordable and EJ Services for $35,000. And per my conversation with him, that is all he has been billed for. He has not received a pay request from Affordable beyond that amount of money. So,
Mr. Murdy.
Is it your intention, or are you within your rights to make Affordable and anybody else a joint payee with Morley in the payment that you make to Morley? And have you received a notice to the owner, or has from Affordable or anybody else?
it's my understanding that EJ Services, I believe, filed an NTO. I also received copies of several notices of non-payment. Again, I don't have a contract with any of these entities that we're talking about other than Morley, but I do get copies of stuff. So I've seen that. I also was told, or there was a request to Ed for a copy of the bond. It's my understanding he was going to make a bond claim. But again, with them being 2 tiers down, again, I have only certain things that I can and can't do. I've had a lot of discussions with Morley about the issue. And again, we will be paying Morley for their February draw tomorrow, since we just got their paperwork, and they're planning to pay EJ Services and Affordable next week.
Well,
now we could, if you would like me to, I could go back and make that a 3-way joint check if we need to.
My only thought, if he's committed to you that he's going to pay him, it would seem to me,
Well, let me say this.
by your putting their names on the check,
Sure.
you would be consistent with his commitment to you.
Right. Well, let me say this. If EJ Services and Affordable, if Morley tells me they sent them the check Wednesday and I get notice they haven't paid, I still have plenty of money of Morley's that I could pay them $35,000. So they're,
I'm not trying to run your business.
understand.
I want to make sure that we do, as a board, everything we can to try and, because part of this project and the bonding was to put local people to work, particularly minorities. And if we find that they've not been protected, then I think we've got an obligation to do something. On the other hand, if they haven't filed their paperwork or something, then I think,
Sure.
they need to do that. And I would have thought that that would have been done, by now, particularly if mediation efforts and EBO efforts have been, involved.
Well, I think there's many parts to this, but one part is they have performed some work for which they are due to be paid, and I'm going to speak to Affordable because they have an agreement with Morley. He's completed work for which he is owed money, okay? And he has a contract that says he's owed so many dollars per square foot or per linear foot. So he's due that money, and that's the money that I understand would be paid sometime next week. And that could either be a joint check payment from Magi or however we decide to do it today. I have no issue with that. But the other part of the piece is whether or not those dollars cover his cost. That's a whole separate discussion.
If somebody underbid a project or misbid it, that's...
Right. I mean, if you spend $100,000 to perform $50,000 worth of work, then, there's nothing I can do about it and nothing you guys should have to do about it. I mean, that's, if I underbid a job and it costs me my profit to finish it, I have nobody to go to ask for help. That's the cost of doing business. So to
Change order,
speak.
that's a different
Sure.
scenario.
Right. So, I mean, that's kind of my 30,000-foot understanding. Since I don't have a direct contract with these folks, I am involved, and I'm trying to.
You said
remedy
you're gonna issue your check tomorrow. Is that what you said?
We do it through an automatic draft, so we will be doing that we do that on Monday and Thursdays. It'll happen tomorrow. It'll take a couple days to get through his account. So
your contact at Morley said they will issue their check next week, joint check.
a day or two after he gets his
Mr. Rigsby,
payment.
the lady next to you said, did you want to comment, ma'am? Thank you, Mr. Horton. Stay close.
Well, actually, this is a part of the complication is because, just like Mr. Horton said, there are a couple of elements to this that are missing. One of the primary elements are missing are the on-ground realities that occurred when we were working at Maritime Park. Ms. Goggins here is actually the owner of Affordable Concrete. Okay, so there are some elements that are missing. I agree, Mr. Horton, on that matter. Our agreement stated, and this is what happened in the beginning of this project and how it is we ended up here. When Morley came into town, they did what contractors do. They said everything they needed to say in order to get to a space where they can get the contract. And then there began to be these reverberations that started to occur. Actually, Affordable started working on Maritime Park before their contract was actually done. Always working in what is called good faith. The good faith option has failed through the floor. That's one of the reasons why Mr. Hawthorne became involved. We've been looking for a check, that same $35,000, since February.
And they told us in a meeting 2 months ago that they would be forthcoming. And another key issue is that when they bid the job, that they bid it based upon a 12-week schedule.
14-week schedule.
And it progressed 2 months past the time, and that because of just the sequencing of things.
And they bid that with Morley.
Yes, we did, and I would not have signed the contract if I did not see profit. This was not a labor-only contract that I signed.
Ma'am, could you just state your name?
My name is Rhonda Goggins, sir. I'm sorry. I'm the owner of Affordable Concrete and Construction, LLC.
Thank you.
I stepped out on this project because we worked on it 2 years, coming down to every meeting, trying to come up with unit prices, trying to be a part of something with this city that we thought it was going to be wonderful and great, but it turned out to be a disaster. I feel that there's a lot of untruth spoken here with the money especially. We have turned in a total of $106,000 to Morley, of work completed. They've only paid MHP $64,000 to $67,000, but yet and still they're constantly on me to sign lien waivers where they paid me throughout May, throughout February, and they really haven't. And I did my calculations, and I stopped signing lien waivers because I saw the untruth in what was going on here. MHP has not been being paid, and they're want me to sign statements for them to give to HOR so they can get their money so they can pay MHP. But they're so far behind, I'm not signing anything else because I'm I'm basically lying. They have not paid these people. And we've turned in $106,000 worth of work. Here's $84,000 of proof where it's notarized that I've sent in. They've only paid these people out of this $84,000 worth of proof, $67,000. Where's the rest of that money?
And mind you, we're already getting dual checks.
Already.
That's already in place. Our issue is quite simple. Morley has been asking for them to submit documents because they don't have any money. I understand that. There are a lot of companies that are going through trying times in this area, which is one of the reasons why I stepped in. I stepped in because I had the resources in order to ensure not only that the EBO followed through and there was this full participation, but it was also a helpmeet to Morley, who had made these good faith commitments to ensuring that this process would be followed through. Our issue now is that it's not happening. So we're asking for a process or a reinstitution of a process that will help us all sit down to the table where it's not just one side or two sides, but it's all sides that are on the table. All the paperwork can be put on the table. We can talk about conditions. We can talk about conditions on the ground. Right now, Mr. Horton is only talking to affordables, so of course he's only going to get that side of the story, or to Morley. So that's really where we are now. But everybody kind of needs to be in the same room. Without Mr. Ray and without Mr. Hawthorne, that simply won't occur. So that's our issue right now. So we're just looking for your assistance in that.
Ms. Carter and Ms. Scott.
Actually, it was
Ms. Scott.
No, I'm just trying to understand what's going on. Can you tell me how many lien waivers you signed and help me understand again why you signing lien waivers for during a time when apparently they should not have been signed?
All of the things that I've turned in, they want lien waivers saying that for the month, say, take for instance, from when we started October. They need a statement to send to HOR saying that the whole month of October has been paid as far as the work. They've cut a check for it, okay? Each month I have to do this. They just recently asked me one for January, February, and I did the calculations, and I stopped it because I looked at it, and they're actually asking me to sign something where they haven't paid MHP any money. And that's where all of our checks are going because of the extension of the project. They promised us 12 to 14 weeks, like I said prior. I would have never signed this if I did not see profit. I'm a business. I'm in this for profit, not for laborly and hourly wages and for a weekly salary. I would have never done this project if I didn't see profit. And also to be part of a project that was so just great for the city. I wanted to be a part of it. Of course I do. Any small business, especially African-American businesses, yes, you want to be a part of something that big. But to get into something that big and have to come out of my own pocket and be in debt with my company, I just see that's wrong. Because the simple fact, we went on all good faith. Every meeting we attended was 12 to 14 weeks. Okay? When they saw things start getting crazy, that's when it flipped all of a sudden. We had men out there, they promised us 3,000 linear feet per day so we could make profit and get this over with. We didn't see that to the very maybe last 2 weeks of this. We had men out there talking about conditions. We had men out there that only required a 5-man job. They wanted to see at least 10 to 15 people just moving around doing nothing, and that's how our payroll was exceeded. So it's not because we did not do our business correctly. It's because we were promised certain things that we did not get throughout this whole process. Everything we were promised, we did not get. Everything.
So are you basically saying that you signed them under duress or something?
Yes. Basically, yes. Basically, yes. We started this project before I signed the contract, okay? This is my husband. He was over everything. He knows it even more than me because he's the one that spent 2 years coming down to meeting after meeting after meeting to make sure that we were a part of this, along with a lot of other businesses that fell out. But we stuck with this. We were the ones last standing, so to speak, okay? Thinking this was going to be a profitable adventure. But no, it has cost me money. And this is the first time in 15 years of doing business that anything has cost me money. And dealing with the city of Pensacola, I just never thought that that would happen. That's why I did it, because it was for my city. And I was so proud to be a part of that. So now it's like I've even addressed city officials. They won't talk to me. I was just lawyers. They won't talk to me. So therefore, when I see all this fear, because I feel like I've been done wrong and I need help, and I see all this fear, that's why I know there needs to be some type of mediation, because I know something's wrong in the pot. I've looked at everything. I've looked at the beginning proposal form back in July, and there's so many discrepancies that's on file for the city right now. And this packet that anyone can get shows you who bid it, what, and when. This is all incorrect, all wrong. No one sat down with us to do unit prices. The thing that we heard, you need to sign this contract or you're going to lose everything within 48 hours. Not have time to look over it, not have time to discuss, do you think 84 cents per square foot for sidewalk is right? Because if so, no, we would never have signed that under those unit prices, because you cannot profit that way. You can't do things at the unit prices that they quoted.
Ms. Carter.
Yeah, we bid it upon a certain amount of time that this would be completed, 12 to 14 weeks. It's very extended over here.
Ms. Carter.
That's not my fault.
Ms. Rhonda?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Since you're the owner, I'm going to direct the question to you. How long has this been going on?
Since the beginning,
Well, can you give us a date
October the September. Yeah, last week September
of what year?
of 2011,
Of 2011, and today is the,
May 2012.
what took you so long? That's a long time to be having problems, and we just getting it.
Well, actually, no, we've been addressing these problems from the beginning, having meeting after meeting after meeting, and they've been telling us from the start that they're going to rectify it. They told us in the meeting, you're going to get your 3,000 linear feet. We were trying to avoid this, going on good faith, trusting people, but you can't do that, I see. That's not how this game was played.
And let me finish talking to her, and then you can speak back. And the reason why is since 2010, we've had an EBO, different chairs, and that was the whole purpose of that committee, to make sure they resolved issues regardless of what they are. So we wouldn't be here today at the end of the project in this situation. So I just want to make sure that it's been going on since September of 2010, and now today, which is May the 16th, it's come to a head, correct?
Correct. I'm going to say correct.
Now, and second to that, I want to say that I'm very proud that you're all working together, because I know you guys have been working really hard in the last month or two. And it has never come to the chair, to the EBO committee. So without J.J. Morley here, I think that's the only fraction that's not here, Chair. We need to hear the whole story. I think it is resolvable even once we hear the whole story. I think that we have enough intelligent people on the committee to kind of give you the pros and cons, or to make it clear to the board what decision to make, because we're talking about a lot of money here, 104.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. First of all, I certainly, Ms. Coggins, I hear you say about your lien waivers. If you're owed money, I wouldn't sign your lien waivers. That's what they're there for, start with. And
But I'm signing lies, sir. The waivers that they're asking me to sign are saying that they have paid me. They have not paid me. So I cannot sign for money that they have not.
And I'm telling you, don't sign them. That's your protection.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I'm saying. Don't sign them. That's what they're there for, to protect you. Again, the contracts, not with Mr. Horton. It's we're down a couple layers, which makes this a little difficult for us. Our involvement. It's not with the city, and I understand it was a city project, but it's certainly not a contract with the city. It's my understanding there was a mediation scheduled.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. I was advised that this was going to mediation. The party had agreed, and we'd actually arranged a date. This was in early March with Mr. Ray, and I was told that at the last minute it was canceled.
What happened was the Morley had requested that we go to an informal agreement and then to follow the process of the EBO. And clearly, we've got a lot of documentation on this. So from our side, we have the documentation under our thing. Morley then wanted to go through the EBO process, cited the process through the EBO agreement. We had that informal meeting. I attended, Morley attended, EJ Services, we all attended, and we came to some agreements. One of the agreements in there was that we would, that Morley would be able to pay the first $35,000 that we're now discussing now 2 months ago. Then that time, and part of the key problems has been is that there is a paper trail that clearly shows that the bids that Affordable Concrete and provided to Morley and the pricing with Morley is based upon a 12 to 14 week schedule. And that period has extended from 12 to 14 weeks to over 26 weeks, okay, because of just the way that the schedule, the process gone. During that same period of time, and I've reviewed, there are plenty of what are called 48-hour notices to Affordable Concrete that says that basically they need to put more men on the job. And if they don't put more men on the job, their contract will be terminated. And at the point in time that they had those additional men on the job, that there wasn't the workload there to get it done. And actually there was more people. Then addition was part of what the pricing for MHP balance is for workers' compensation and payroll taxes. And so when you make a deal based upon a workers' compensation for a 12-week period and it extends to 24 weeks, those overhead costs of the contract increase the price of the contract. However, there's been no change orders. There's been change order requests made to Morley, and that hasn't been adhered to. Clearly, this is one where I think that it is resolvable, like Ms. Carter said, but we've got to get Morley to the table and to discuss in good faith, and let's talk about that. But one of the key issues, the reason, when you look at the difference between the work that's done and work in place, we're talking about a $30,000 to $40,000, probably about a $30,000 dollar difference in the time period, delays, cost, additional labor that was associated with this. And unfortunately, I've been advised that because actually they requested, 2 weeks ago, Lou, to have another form, to start the formal mediation, and we were advised that we, as contractors of CMPA, that we're not in a position, and correctly advised that we're not in a position to help them any further. And even as today, as Mr. Rigsby, I think he's just gone, Mr. Rigsby has said that even if it's necessary, that they would hire us to help this thing, to help resolve this thing. So we're trying to work through that right now. So this is one of those closeout issues that we talked about, and I think even Mr. Carter in a couple of meetings talked about this is one of the things that's brewing, and it's finally coming to a final head because it doesn't seem like there's a good faith effort on behalf of Morley to resolve it.
Comments or questions? Mr. Baker.
Just a quick question of George. Are there others out there like this?
Well, fortunately, in the grand scheme of things, this is not have one dispute of this level is not uncommon at all, and I mean it's actually is a great.
I don't mean to
yes.
Seriousness of. I was just curious.
Oh yes. Well, the other one, I think Pat Brown is here. Pat Brown has a dispute relative to. He has a $17,000 change order request, and I think that there's discussions, and I have had received the documentation on that. From what I remember, that I think that Hoare had agreed, or Magi had agreed that there was a due for the change order. However, the change order amount that Mr. Alex Davison of Davis Marine has received was only $30,000, and he's trying to talk Mr. Brown into accepting a $6,800 payment on that $17,000 true change order. And I think Mr. Brown can speak to that himself. Pat? He can speak to that.
It's Mr. Baker. Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we set this aside for a second? I think Mr. Fleming has another appointment. We need to get this legal update here before we're not able to get him before us today. Is it possible that we set this aside for a short while and get him so he can get to his next appointment?
How long is your presentation, Mr. Fleming?
Oh, probably 5 minutes.
All right, because I also got Mr. Baldwin on deck back there that I promised to get him out as well. So we'll break on this for a second, go to Mr. Fleming.
Okay,
Followed by
thank
Mr.
you very
Baldwin.
much, and I'm not being insensitive. I
Yep.
just know that he's got another appointment he's got to go to. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Get him off the
And-
clock, is what you're saying.
And the actual other appointment is there's a federal deadline for a response due in your case today, so that I've got to get that out before 5. Let me give you a quick update on things. I think that since I talked to you last time, the federal court has ruled on the motion for summary judgment. They have found, and I can really kind of quote from the court's decision. In fact, the judge summarized it pretty well in the granting of a temporary restraining order.
I can do that.
And in granting the temporary restraining order, the court summarized her granting the partial summary judgment in favor of the plaintiff on count 3. That was the count that said the contract to MPDP was awarded in violation of the competitive award statutes of the state of Florida, concluding that the development agreement at issue was awarded in violation of Florida's competitive award statutes pertaining to professional services, referring to the CCNA. Undisputed evidence on the summary judgment record indicated that CMPA was entitled to recover funds expended for professional services under the agreement, which amounted to $1,064,610.83, subject to possible set-off based on alleged equitable defenses. Whether equitable defenses will be available cannot be determined until outstanding issues of fact are resolved. So the court did not end the war, but the Judge Rogers really struck a fatal blow into MPDP's whole case. I mean, now we're arguing over damages and arguing over the amount of the damages. We, as you know, and as I've previously told you, MPDP was set up as a empty shell entity to accept this one asset of the development agreement. We have learned during the discovery stage that it had a negative net worth. It has no assets to speak of, other than it's got an account receivable from Magi Construction. That account receivable we have identified at a hearing held last week with information that was provided to us by Magi in response to a subpoena that they're holding, in round numbers, $460,000 in an account payable to MPDP. We moved for the court, based on its granting of partial summary judgment, for preliminary injunction to have those funds frozen. The court granted the temporary restraining order, and in doing so made some findings that are very encouraging. First of all, the court stated that to get a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order, and the difference between the two is duration. A temporary restraining order is often issued until the court can hold a full hearing on the preliminary injunction. But the showing for both is the same, and the court went through those elements on the 4 factors as the plaintiff, that's us, would have to show a substantial likelihood of success on the merits of their claim. Number 2 is irreparable injury will be suffered unless the injunction issues. Number 3, the threatened injury to them outweighs whatever damage the proposed injunction may cause the defendants. And number 4, if issued, the injunction will not be adverse to the public interest. The court ruled, in considering those factors, that the court finds there is a substantial likelihood of success on the allegations and the record evidence before the court. Importantly, the court has found liability on count 3 and determined that, notwithstanding its equitable defenses, the defendant is not entitled to any profit from the contract. The court went on to find that the plaintiff has made a strong showing, that's the judge's words, that there is a substantial likelihood that equitable defenses may not be available on this record. And then the court concluded Thus, the court finds that the plaintiff has satisfied the elements required for issuance of a temporary restraining order. Now, those same elements are part of a preliminary injunction. The difference is a preliminary injunction gives the defendant a chance to come and try to say the plaintiff's allegations are blatantly false for these reasons, and here's uncontroverted evidence to show that they're false. We started that hearing last week, had to continue it because the court did not have sufficient time to hear all of the evidence. We got about probably 2/3 of the way through Mr. Spears' testimony. The hearing is rescheduled for Thursday of next week. I believe Thursday is the 24th. And it's scheduled for the morning of the 24th. And then the court has scheduled a hearing or a formal settlement conference between the parties and the magistrate judge, Charles Kahn, for the afternoon of the 24th. We need to discuss, and we need to discuss in a so-called shade meeting, any settlement issues, settlement strategy. And so I'm making a formal request to the board today that we have a special closed session meeting to discuss settlement strategy, which the Sunshine Law allows us to discuss.
And we need to do that before the hearing next Thursday?
We need to do that before the mediation, which begins the afternoon after the hearing. So, yes, it needs to be before the 24th.
A week from today?
In this room?
We'll, yeah, hold on.
Mr. Reeves.
Potentially, we got $1,064,000 in damages, potentially.
Thus far. Thus far.
And as a pragmatic matter, we've got $460,000 in real money.
Bird in the bush is what I'd call that. Bird in the hand, rather. The two in the bush is the difference.
I only want to deal with this hypothetically, okay? But you got a potential of $1 million, you only got 465, and then the court forces you into a settlement hearing. You know, a guy could say, I'll tell you what, take 500,000 off the potential damages that I have, but I'll keep the other 500,000 and let me have it at 465. I mean, what I'm worried about is it looks to me like the court's pushing toward
Mr. Reeves,
there being some money settlement.
maybe this is something we should do in the shade. This discussion.
Say that again.
Maybe this is something we need to do in the shade, which is a closed meeting, before we get to the
I'm only talking hypothetical.
hypothetical will be in the paper tomorrow morning. How's next Wednesday for everybody? And it'll be a closed meeting that we can discuss settlement statements, which is settlement negotiations, which is legal to have that closed.
1 o'clock Wednesday.
Same time, same place next week?
1:15 would be better for me.
What,
Maybe 1:30.
how about, and it won't go long, how about 1:30 next Wednesday? We'll go ahead and set that.
Mr. Fleming, does that work for your schedule?
I'm checking real quickly. I mean, I'll make it work if I don't have a court hearing or something. Wednesday the 23rd, 1:30, I can do that. Not a problem. I had that blocked off for hearing prep anyway for the next morning.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be longer than an hour, and we'll get a notice out about that. Mr. Birding?
Presumably, the judge has extended the injunction because of the hearing.
She did. She did. She extended it to the 25th, the day after the hearing on the injunction, and I'm optimistic that she will make the injunction permanent. No facts have changed since she found that all 4 criteria were met for the TRO. They've gotten stronger.
Said that it expired, the one that I was furnished said it expired after 14 days.
That's a good point.
Still in
And it's my understanding that the money's been actually delivered into escrow into the court.
No, it's still being held. it cannot be dispersed without someone being in contempt of court. So it's not going to be dispersed unless the judge dissolves the TRO and refuses to issue the
Are you
preliminary
agreeing or
injunction.
disagreeing there, Mr.? You're agreeing, right? It won't be dispersed. And this is the legal notification Mr. Horton told us last time that he would need, not just something from us. Anything else, Mr. Fleming, Mr. Murdy?
Has the bond been posted?
It has. It has been. So
Seven-
everything's in.
$786, was that it?
Yeah, it was not much. It was pretty small bond.
Anything else, Mr. Fleming?
That's it.
Is that it? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And also staying out of order, I told Mr. Thank you, Mr. Fleming.
There will need to be a motion, second, and vote on having the
moved.
the meeting.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Staying out of order for a few more minutes. Mr. Baldwin's got a 2 o'clock meeting, I know, and he's got a quick presentation for us. And congratulations on the Wahoo win last night. Actually, I've been told I need to call on Dr. Jones since this is his committee.
Well, sir, the Design Development Committee did meet, and Mr. Baldwin presented a proposal for a new new scoreboard, and we would like to hear from him at that time.
Thank you. Ed, do you have the videos? Okay.
Same images as last time.
Okay. What we're proposing to do is add a secondary scoreboard to the facade of the press box at Maritime Park. If you recall, when we first went through discussions many, many months ago about position of the current scoreboard, there were 3 options available. 2 of which weren't applicable because of various reasons, and then settling in on the 3rd spot. The 3rd spot, which comes out of the berm, presents a unique challenge, and that is the display of ball strikes, safes, outs, all that kind of neat stuff, and certainly running score. So what we've done is gone through Joe Durrell as the engineer, Horror Construction, and presented to the appropriate committee last week about our desire to add an additional scoreboard. That scoreboard, which is on the screen in front of you right now, is approximately 20 feet wide and 6 feet tall. That would be, like I said, affixed to the facade, as that picture depicts right there, in the center frame of the press box. There will not be any issues as far as interference with lights for players, any of the other issues. It is purely designed to be a nighttime board that is visible for all the patrons sitting on the sides of the seating area and the berm and standing in the outfield area. This is a project that's going to cost, and there's a little bit better picture right there. This project is going to cost approximately $40,000, and this is something that we would pay for ourselves, and then as the lease agreement goes, or the agreement goes, is that then it then becomes property of the CMPA. So, Mr. Chairman, that is our request.
We had no forum, Mr. Chairman, so could not take any action, but I would certainly move approval of this design.
I got a motion and a second. Discussion, Mr. Murdy.
Is there, was there any consideration of any advertising on that sign, or is it just pure scoreboard?
No, there'll probably be some advertisement panels on there as well.
Any other discussion?
Who will
Councilman Johnson.
receive funds from that advertisement?
The ball club will.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We appreciate the gift, Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, sir, very much, and thank you.
You keep enhancing
All
the city
members.
stadium. We appreciate it.
Okay.
We appreciate it. All right, let's, we're going to
Mr. Chairman, there was one other
Dr.
issue,
Jones.
some discussion, but one of the subcommittee members has stepped out, so I'd like to bring it up later on in the
All
program.
right, we're going to
at
get
the
back to your
usual
full
time.
committee. Yes, sir. We're going to go back into our open forum, and we were discussing how to resolve this issue with Mr. Rigsby and Affordable Concrete and Marley and Magi. as you were sitting down, Mr. Hawthorne, did I hear you say y'all were trying to get Marley back to the table? But he's not cooperating, or you just haven't had that meeting? I heard one got canceled.
Well, we were going to try to get Morley back to the table, but again, our directive, proper directive from the executive director is that we need to have further board action before we can do anything else on behalf of the CMPA, because, I mean, essentially I'm your agent and would be your agent, and absence of that authority because of the expiration of the contract, what we do, it could probably end up being a legal mess that I did not want a part of and Mr. Ray did not want a part of.
Ms. Carter.
However, let me just say that, however, Mr. Rigsby again this morning said that he will engage us to handle it, you know, basically on behalf of this, so we may have that worked out.
As far as financial, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Ms. Carter.
The last board meeting, we talked about the potential of, you know, closeout issues, and I know that there are two other companies, and you asked me to come back with you and tell me what those companies are. There is Pat Brown, and there's another company that I made our prime aware of today. I didn't want to necessarily not give him an opportunity to resolve it. So there is one more minority company that's owed at least $14,000 that is an issue. So I think we should give them the opportunity to resolve it, at least put on record that they have to resolve it within a certain period of time before we get involved, because there are three of them out there.
Well, that's certainly right. Mr. Brown, I've got a card from Mr. Brown. We'll hear from him shortly. Is the other, the third person you mentioned, is their contract with Magi, or is it through a sub?
It's with Hort Construction, and I just made Mr. Horton aware of it and got the information and gave it to him directly, so I really think he needs enough time to research it before.
And I hear Mr. Horton, I think loud and clear, saying that he's trying to work. I mean, he's doing two-party checks, and he even said that he'll hold money. He's not worried about paying Marley and not having the money at the end of the day. The case we're having, as Mr. Reeves pointed out, with Davidson, that there's no money there to collect. You know, that's why we've got to hold what we can. And I hear Mr. Horton saying he'll try to hold what he can until that's settled. So, George, you said that Executive Director, being Ed Spears, said bring this before the board for approval of whether we wanted you to be involved on behalf of us or through.
To give us some direction. We just don't have a mandate from the board to move anything in light of the fact that our contracts were no longer agents of the CMPA or consultants of the CMPA. It would be improper for us to subject ourselves or inject ourselves into the process for the EBO process that is a CMPA process. And because if this ends up to litigation, I never want it to be said that we were improperly acting or advising or hurt the causes of any of the parties involved.
And Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, my response to Mr. Hawthorne and Mr. Ray when they sent me this email asking if they should participate, my instruction was, if you choose to do so, you need to notify all parties you're doing it independently and are not acting on behalf of CMPA.
And that's what we're prepared to do with Mr. Ray.
All right. Dr. Bolden.
So I want to be clear, George. Are you asking us for your approval to be involved?
Well, I mean, no, at this point, no, because I think that what Mr. Rigsby says is that we would be, that they'll engage us, and so that we would not actually be acting as an official of the CMPA, that we will go through and help through the mitigation process and act on behalf of the two minority contractors here and assisting them is moving forward. And clearly, and again, in my interpretation of the documents at this point, there's more than justifiable reason to believe that at the end of the day that there is some redress that needs to be done to on behalf of Affordable Concrete and on behalf of MHP Balance. The other ones, Pat Brown, and I don't even know about the other one. I haven't heard that one, so that Ms. Carter, she's got more information on that than I do.
All right, Mr. Brown's on deck, but until that, let's resolve. Hang on, sir. Mr. Rigsby, you got a further comment?
I just explained to Mr. Hawthorne at my office earlier today that every day that this process is going on the way that it is, it's costing me a lot of money. Pensacola is not my only project. I have quite a number of them, and the interest on $104,000 is a lot of money. It was never meant to go that way, and that's one of the reasons why we set up the dual checks. We already have a dual check system as we speak. The problem was they stopped issuing checks, period. Based on what they've recognized was some confusion about the process. But that's one of the reasons why you sit down to have conversations, so you can allay the confusion. What they did, and they decided they were going to do, is they were going to gamesmanship the process. This is what they did with Mr. Hawthorne when Mr. Hawthorne stepped in and tried to have a conversation with him. You make statements, and everything is being said in good faith. The reason that Miss Goggins was trying to do that is because J.J. Morley didn't have any money, and basically what they said, look, you guys are in a lot of debt to these people. If you want us to pay them, you better sign these forms. If you want us to pay Mr. Rigsby so he can stop calling us about the money, we'll issue the dual checks, but you better sign these forms. So even if it wasn't done in that direct way, you know implicitly what that means. We can't pay Mr. Rigsby, so Mr. Rigsby is going to have some issues. And we won't talk to Mr. Rigsby about it because, you know, even though Mr. Rigsby is financing our project, because that's exactly what I was doing, because they didn't have the money. They were supposed to actually send 2 supervisors here to Pensacola on this project. They sent 1. And that 1, suffice it to say, wasn't all that together. That's one of the reasons why we ended up with all of those delays and all of those issues out on the project. Now, it was not my job to project manage this process for them. That simply was not my job. And had I tried to do that, there might have been some more complaints to the EBO committee about Mr. Rigsby and his job performance out there at Maritime Park. But that was not my job. Is purely a behind-the-scenes measure. My job is to support the city of Pensacola, the CMPA, the EBO process. I committed myself to the Maritime Park project many years ago. Sat silently in the back of the room, always looking for ways that I could be a helpmeet to the goals, and that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did.
Dr. Bolden.
One follow-up for Mr. Rigsby. Let's assume that all this takes place as you have described it, and Morley still refuses to participate. What does that leave?
Well, the only thing that leaves us is litigation, you know, which is one of the reasons why we had an EBO program in the beginning, because we realized the antics that are played in contracting and construction. We knew that. We knew that the small guys didn't have the capital to come into these projects. We know. You know, you're going 90 days paying payroll every day, every week, and you're going to wait 90 days to pay people when you got 15, 20, 25 people working on a work site. You have to have persons like myself who are behind the scenes, who are trying to help with the process. That's exactly why we stepped in, because we knew the smaller contractors would have a difficult time dealing with some of the out-of-town contractors. The relationship piece, which is where we came in, we had the relationship with Morley, but we were not concrete contractors. So we assisted Morley in attaining the contract. We introduced them to Affordable as well as several other minority contractors. They came together, decided to put that contract in Affordable's name. I committed myself to saying, hey, I understand their dilemma in the way of financing this project. I am here to be a helpmeet to them finishing it.
Mr. Horton.
I want to say just real quick, I mean, Morley is not here being representative, and they're getting raked over the coals, but Hoare Construction uses Morley all over the southeast. We've done multiple jobs with them. Typically, they self-perform their own work with their own crews, and it is impeccable. I've got a $6 million hardscape job in Atlanta, and they're one of 2 people that I'm going to have price the job. So they are a quality contractor. Is getting ripped a new one here, and I think that's unfair. I want to say that. And again, you know, we'll come to whatever conclusion we want to come to today, and if you guys direct me or ask me to pay them without, it's a 3-party check, I'll do that. But again, you know, you still are not hearing the whole story. I mean, if a guy gives you a price to do the work at $5 a square foot and it cost him $8, that's his problem. That's not my problem, and that's not y'all's problem. And I think that's where we're at. And, I mean, George and I have had those discussions, and George agreed with that. So he's not saying that now, but he did.
What I'm saying now is that if he agreed at $5 a square foot in a 12 weeks time period, and it takes 24 weeks.
George, a unit price per square foot is a unit price per square foot, whether you do it in 1 day or a year. And your workman's comp rates are based on the actual wage paid. They're not based on the length of a job. So I think we're throwing some untruths here.
Well, we as a board, I mean, we certainly can't get in between. We can't direct HORE, just for the record, and we can't direct them to go past one of their subs to pay somebody. I mean, that's just not our role here.
I will make sure they get their $35,000 check next week. I'll make that commitment to you guys, that I will make sure that happens.
You're going to make sure that Marley gives the check to Affordable Concrete.
Joint check to Affordable, EJ Services, MP, whoever it is.
So that'll be next week, and
Yes,
we
sir.
know there's still, from what I heard Mr. Rigsby say, there's 104,000 out there, so we're still talking about 69,000.
$60,000 dispute.
There's some that hasn't been billed, so that's.
Well, as I told you, once Morley pays this $35,000, they will have paid any and all bills that they've received from Affordable. Is what I was told an hour ago, 2 hours ago now. So, and I'm not sure where all that stands.
I don't see anybody disagreeing with that. Mr. Birding.
At this point, I'd like to make a motion to be the sense of this board that if Mr. Hawthorne and Mr. Ray are privately retained to provide mediation services, that sense of this board that be done is absolutely as soon as possible, in the sense of this board that all potential parties attend that session.
Yes.
And if they do not, you know, if that process doesn't do, then I think it's going to be incumbent upon this board to take, you know, further steps. And I think Mr. Brown and whoever this other one, we find out a little bit more of that, and I would at that point expand this motion to see if we can encompass
All three.
you know, all three of those, you know, in this. And the way to do it is if all these people have a fight, you know, or a dog in the fight, they all need to sit around the same table. And, you know, you're absolutely right. If, you know, Morley's not represented here, we're not hearing all the story. The great thing about mediation, it can be done in confidence, and everybody's there, and it's a mediator, not an arbitrator. He can't decide it, but he does have powers of persuasion, particularly backed by this board, that, you know, we're right here at the end. Nobody in this room wants there to be a black eye at the end of this whole process. We need to resolve it, and privately and in mediation is the way to do it. And litigation, I say every day, litigation is a luxury. It's like any other luxury. If you can afford it, there's always that option. But there is not always the option to resolve things around the table privately, confidentially, and quickly and inexpensively. And I think that's the option that needs to be pursued.
And I don't disagree with that, but I'm not sure that Morley would agree to a mediation where, and, you know, to me, there's a conflict of interest going on here with George and John Rigsby and all. I mean, if we're going to have a mediator, let's get somebody that's completely independent of the situation to hear Affordable Concrete and Morley Concrete.
A federal judge told me once that you've got to be totally neutral as an arbitrator, and you can't have any background. But as a mediator, the more you know about all sides, you know, the better position you are to be a mediator. Mr. Hawthorne is not the mediator. He was involved as the EBO. Mr. Ray is a well-recognized mediator, and he is totally, you know, neutral, and his job is to resolve the differences among the parties. So I don't see that as a problem, but in my request, and if if my motion passes, would be that I think it would be, if they're that big an operation, you've got that kind of confidence in them, they would do well to have someone attend.
I don't think they'll have any problem with it.
I have a motion here, second. Second, Ms. Carter. Any further discussion on this?
Yes.
Dr. Jones, then Ms. Scott.
I don't think that the CMPA board, this appears to be a private dispute between parties outside the CMPA area of responsibility. And I think that while we are sympathetic to the plight of the contractors, we do not have to be involved in dictating or directing what happens after that. And I would not support this motion.
Ms. Scott.
I guess I have to halfway agree with Dr. Jones. I'm not sure if I can support the motion. For one, I'm not sure if I understand it. I'm not sure if I understand what the role of this board is in this dispute. And while I really want to find a way to assist, I just feel like this board is in an awkward position, and I think for the main reason is that they signed the lien waiver. And I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that with a company that has 15 years experience, and with all parties that have indicated that they are familiar with the antics, so to speak, of these type of contracts. I think it just puts us in a very difficult spot. I think we have to be careful how we proceed in terms of our role in this particular situation. I want to find a way to help them, but at the same time, we have to be mindful of the role of this board.
You indicated you didn't understand, at least in part. My motion was that this board just go on record encouraging all three parties to engage in the mediation process as promptly as they can, with the hopes that that mediation process will resolve all issues. And the only proviso is if it doesn't, then the board will have to consider
right, but
what
we
other...
don't need a motion. We don't need a motion.
Hang on. Let's go through the chair, please.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Scott.
I just don't think we need a motion to do that.
All right. Mr. Reeves, did you have something?
In other words, I agree with what these two parties said is, I don't want to give hope that they have a mediation with all the parties, and we ask them all to be there, and we're sympathetic and what have you. What I don't want to provide is some hope that if they can't work it out in mediation, there's something that we can do about it.
Right, and I'm not sure what
I'll modify the second part of my motion and just encourage the parties to mediate as soon as possible. All three of them. Period.
You got an amendment to the motion. Do I hear you second that amendment?
Yeah, I think
You're
that,
original seconder.
yeah, I'm a second, and then this is just a discussion. I think that the reason, this is not new to this board, that subs would get upset and bring it to it. This has happened many times, and we really have done a great job of trying to support. And the only thing we can do as a board is to encourage these parties to resolve it. And know that there are many other opportunities, so it's real well worth their time to really resolve it. The whole world is looking at how we do the end of this project.
And I think that's what Mr. Murray was trying to say. And again, I say, we heard Ms. Scott talked about lien waivers. I certainly wouldn't sign anything else. That's your protection. I know it's not as timely as you want, but that's certainly your protection at this point, that somebody's going to have to come to the table with you if this mediation doesn't work, because Mr. Horton there is going to make sure all lien waivers are off this project at some point. We got a motion the second of...
Yeah, and can we include, I think we also, too, you asked that we include the other two so we can just get the end of this project resolved. So I think there's some validity.
Anything that's unresolved, I think, is what he included in his motion to
So,
resolve
and that was the purpose for the EBO. We do have a media on our committee, so we can only assist in conversation, but I agree with my fellow board members. As a board, we cannot, we have to put it in the hands of our prime. That's why we have one. And I think that Mike is well committed to making this happen. Am I not correct? So
correct.
We have to give him those 30 days, and I think we should revisit this perhaps in 30 days.
I'd say mediation as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Didn't say who the mediators, what process.
Who was going to pay for it?
We're not paying for it.
We're not-
Mr. Murding, I think he's just trying to say that we want to end this project on a high note. If there's some things out there, we need to get them moving. Dr. Bold and then Mr. Baker.
Who's
And
going to
the
have the
Reverend-
responsibility for calling this meeting that we're talking about?
I imagine it'll be the parties involved.
Is that right?
Yeah, I will make sure there's a meeting because I've got to get it resolved to move forward with the project. So I
One
will
way or the
make
other,
sure
he's got
there's
some
a
lien
meeting.
waivers out there. Mr. Baker.
I just was hoping before we go to vote on it that Ed would do his best to read the motion.
All right.
He's short.
He'll read it momentarily. Reverend May.
I was going to ask for the restatement of the motion, but I also want to make sure that $36,000 of this problem is already resolved. Is that?
That's my understanding.
Yes.
I
The
just wanna make
36
sure
is
that-
part of the 104 is my understanding.
I think there's a difference about 30,000 when it all is said and done.
Yeah. Mr. Pierce, will you read the motion?
To the best of my ability, Mr. Chairman, the motion was to encourage the parties to privately attend mediation as soon as possible with all parties.
Right. And it would be all
Contesting.
And this,
All contesting parties. And Ms. Carter seconded. Any other discussion on that motion?
and that to include
Ms.
the
Carter.
other two issues. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Well,
All
let me say
parties.
something on
Is
the,
that how you
Mr.
do it?
Horton.
Okay.
Pat's issue is a timing issue. He, and you correct me if this is wrong, he's got a $17,000 change order issue, and then you're owed about $13,000 in final retainage, correct? Okay, so, you know, Davis Marine has still withheld, has retainage withheld in accordance with the contract with you guys, so he can't pay Pat his retainage until his retainage is withdrawn or zeroed out. So the $13,000 is not due based on the contract I have with you guys because y'all are still holding retainage. We are in discussion, Pat, myself, and Alex, over the $17,000, and it will be resolved within the next week to 10 days. So I don't think that issue needs to be a part of the other issue.
Well,
And
what
the
he's
one you
saying is
gave me, I'd need to check into.
Anything that's out there right now on these final contractors is what his motion said. And
The
we're gonna
only
hear-
thing,
we're
the
gonna
only
hear
thing
Mr.
I know
Brown.
about is the affordable Morley
We're
issue.
going to hear from Mr. Brown in a minute. So the motion is to, hopefully, anybody that's out there that's in dispute, that we'll get to mediation. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, Mr. Rigsby, you still wanted to speak? Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm fine.
Are those nay? Motion passed, but did you want, you were, okay, thank you.
I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that I was willing to pay Mr. Hawthorne and Mr. Ray for mediation to keep me from having to sue everybody.
Right.
I told, it's really just, it's not that deep. It really is just called adult people. See, to Mr. Horton, we're these folks. See, you liable to get these people to walk in the room, they not even speak to you. I mean, but I got a lot of money out on the street. And the only thing we were talking about is something simple. Adults get in the room, sit down and talk. We put paperwork on the table. We start talking about the details of matters and have a mediator there that can work through the details. That's all. And I told them, I said, look, I understand the CMPA has money issues. I'm not here to argue with you about money. That's not why I'm here. I'll pay for it myself.
Well, I appreciate it,
I just
Mr.
want to get
Rigsby.
it done, that's all. But, these are a lot of separate issues. I'm not paying for that. Okay? I just wanted to make sure that was understood.
I understand.
I'm not paying for that.
You're
But
not-
what
you're
I
not-
will pay for
You're not, I
is for
understand.
independent mediator. And the only reason we came to CMPA is to be official in the movements. That's all.
Yeah, and we appreciate it.
Because there's when you're dealing with people who are not good faith actors, the only province that you have is an official one. The unofficial has not worked. We tried that in our informal activities, and we have not received one dime from that. So if the agreement is that we'll receive $35,000 next week, I mean, I heard that 2 months ago. You have to remember where I'm coming from. We heard that 2 months ago. Now, she has not signed all her lien waivers. She signed her earlier, and I wanted to make sure that was understood too. She did sign some earlier lien waivers, and those lien waivers that are not being signed are stacking up, and that caused a whole nother level of complications as we start talking about closeout. So that's the only thing I wanted to make clear.
If she's got a legitimate payment she's
Absolutely.
due, she should sign her lien waiver, is what I'm
Absolutely.
saying.
Thank you.
That's going to be the protection, as Mr. Horton says, brings to the table. Reverend May.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Horton, what is his name?
Mike Horton.
Mike Horton. You indicated on the microphone that by next week, they would have a check, if you had to write it yourself, for $30-some-odd thousand dollars, right?
$35,000.
Can't we, since we have him on record, Ed Spears or someone, follow up to make sure that that is followed through?
I'm sure if they don't get a check, they'll be calling.
But someone from this board.
We've paid them tens of millions of dollars. I'm confident that in my mind, I'm with
They're saying
you.
that they've heard this for 3 and 4
Well,
months.
Not from
Not from Hoare.
Okay.
Let me, Horace done everything
Morley.
they said they were going to do at
This
this
is-
whole
this
process.
is from their-
Let me make that real clear.
This from Morley.
But that
And some of that you might have come in late on River May, but when we had this conversation, were you here when we first started this before we had to take a break? Anyway, that we kind of had the players in mind. Mr. Horton, I appreciate your cooperation.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, next up, Pat Brown.
Say good afternoon to the board, and thanks for the opportunity to speak on this issue again. I just have a few brief comments to make on this work I'm talking about. This came about all the way back in April of 2011, and the gist of it is that we were doing some work, and we brought out that there was a design flaw, and to get that design flaw resolved, we were given a change directive in the field. So basically, we had to stop work until we were given instructions on what to do. We were given a corrective drawing and issued directions on how to do it, and that's where this stemmed from. But in doing that, I incurred expenses from that time all the way through March of this current year, and that's the money that's in concern. I had to go in my pocket to pay for those changes. And I just want to make sure that I'm compensated for it, and we acted in good faith along with receiving a change directive so we can keep this project on schedule and try and do our part to have some cohesiveness out there. So this is not a situation where we went out and did some work. No one was aware of what we were doing. We were instructed and given a change directive in the field to do it. So now there's some discrepancy about who should pay, why we should pay, and that's what I want to bring clarity to.
And Mr. Brown, we appreciate the work out there. Your contract was with Davis Marine,
With Davis Marine.
and you said they gave you a change order?
I don't want to point fingers at people, but I've got email documentation. It wasn't just Davis Marine that I got emails from, so I'll just lay it out there like it is. This is, Hoare and Davis Marine, and the documentation I have explicitly says this is what you are to do given this situation. We stopped and had several meetings. It was a stop work basically to get this resolved.
And do you have lien waivers unsigned?
I haven't signed my latest one. No, I have not.
And so you do have some protection of that till this is resolved?
I can't sign it at this point.
That's what I'm saying. So you have
right.
protection until this is resolved by
Right.
not signing that.
But what I'm saying, until it's resolved, I figure from, March, April of 2011 to May of 2012, I mean, how much more time do we need to resolve it?
And Mr. Horton, you kind of addressed that, briefed over that's a issue of dispute between Davis and yourself, or Davis and Mr. Brown?
No, basically, Davis Marine was issued a change order for the work, and as typical in this business, when you have multi-tier subs and you have a outstanding issue, they have had some negotiations to agree on some figure, okay? And I think Pat's, you correct me if this is wrong, this is what I'm hearing, he's held firm, he wants 17,000, whatever. Alex has offered something less, and I had a discussion with Alex 2 days ago, and I had a discussion with Alex today, and we'll get this resolved within the next week or so. If Magi has to take monies that we owe Davis Marine and pay Pat his $17,000, I'll do that.
Not that we're in the middle of this, I'm just curious, where is Davis Marine at this point? You're at 17, where are they?
I'm not sure what he offered.
It's only if you say, Mr. Reeves.
I think 6845.
6845 was the last one I saw.
Okay, and I can tell you my reasoning behind that.
Well,
it takes 2 seconds. This was a labor quote, and out of that 17, I had to pay expenses for material, which was not a part of my contract. So I've already eaten between $8,000 and $9,000. I'm not willing to eat 17, 18 more.
Fair enough. And I hear Mr. Horton, and again, I appreciate, I appreciate Mr. Horton saying he will get them together and come to a meeting of the minds, and that next week he'll pay Mr. Brown himself, even though he's not required to at this point. But I appreciate your willingness to get this resolved. Fair enough?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horton.
Could I ask a question?
Mr. Murdy?
The unnamed party,
Yes.
would you, are you at liberty to disclose who it is?
You know, I have tried to be as open. It's High Tech Plumbing. He's an African-American plumbing company. He has the invoice from September 2010. He piped the water into Hoare Construction. It's a direct bill. And he has not ever talked to Mike Horton. He only talked to Eddie Castle. And Joe, I guess Joe is the guy on the ground. And so he said he did not want to make waves. I said, why did you wait so long? Because I knew that would be the first question. He said he thought that he would be able to, once the stadium was being built, to get more business, and he was just afraid that it would shut him out. And so he was very quiet. He's a very humble man. And I said, I don't see you on any paperwork. And he said, again, he's just afraid. And but
why would he be afraid? Who would tell him such?
You know what?
You don't have that
Pastor,
information?
I do not have that information.
Did I understand you to say that that was a direct
It
contract
was a direct
with
bill
Magi?
with Hoare Construction,
Well,
Eddie Castle. I mean, he only dealt with him and Joe, so I don't know if Mike ever knew, and that's why I wanted to give Mike Horton the opportunity to take a look at the paperwork and
And you said
resolve it.
we'll give him 30 days.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, fair enough. Anything else? Not. We've got next speaker up. We're still in our open forum. Fred Gunther.
Mr. Chairman, board members, let's see here. All right. I guess the last meeting, the board requested that staff move forward with a plan to balance the budget. And from my understanding, that plan is on hold because the city is negotiating with the Wahoos to possibly take over management of the stadium. And basically, that doesn't seem like a valid reason to put it on hold, because the way the management agreement is drawn up, the amount that's due to the city is $541,054 a year, and that's reduced by revenues, so that the CMPA would not be responsible for paying more than $256,054. So basically, if the revenues from the concerts and stadium rentals and that kind of thing, whether that was $20,000 or $200,000, the CMPA is only going to be responsible for the same amount. So I don't think that's any reason to hold up, preparing this plan. I guess I'm just a little disappointed with, there doesn't really seem to be a sense of urgency to address the budget problem. I haven't spoken with Ed about this, but from what I know, unless there's some other revenue source out there, CMPA's for our operations and maintenance budget has been paid $175,000. We had a $200,000 insurance bill due at the end of last year. We're not going to see any other revenue for a couple months till after baseball season. We've got to cover utilities, staff, that kind of thing. So, there's no money there unless there's some other revenue source that I'm not aware of. There's been solutions proposed, such as reducing the reserves. The problem is, by my understanding of the use agreement, the variable ticket surcharge funds the reserves. And we had estimated like $150,000 in year one, and that would drop to around $100,000 in year three. And there was some discussion that may be too high. But I think if you look at, the fact that CMPA spent $2.1 million in FF&E, they're responsible for replacing the majority of those items. They're also responsible for replacing the turf that is estimated to cost around $700,000 every 15 or 20 years. By the time you add in, elevators, HVAC, and that kind of thing, you need to have, $3 million put away over 20 years. So, I really don't see that as a viable alternative. The other thing had been discussed was borrowing money from the city. We already owe the city $500,000 that's going to be due in January, and if we don't pay them, they'll be in default. So, I don't know what the ramifications are if CMPA doesn't pay the city back. I only know that I think the citizens of Pensacola are served better, with that, park being controlled by the CMPA and not the city. I've represented the city in real estate negotiations, and they're not a good landlord, in my opinion. Anyway, what I would hope for is that because we had no operations and audit committee this time, that a board member would request that this plan to balance a budget be brought back before the operations and audit committee for review and to this board at the next meeting. And the only other thing I wanted to address is if the sunset discussion of sunset of the committees comes up today. I think all these problems demonstrates that we need to have as many eyes on these issues, as possible. And not only for operations and audit, but for example, design. The stadium is just one piece of the design of that park. I mean, we spent over $1 million on design guidelines, and we need people that are familiar with those design guidelines to review any future developments on the park. And as far as EBO, I mean, there's a great opportunity there for EBO to work with, contractors that are going to be working on that site later. So I just, anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gunther. Mr. Murdy.
I'd like to make a motion that first of all, we have a Audit and Operations Committee meeting, which we didn't have this month, but we have it before the next meeting, and that be one of the subjects on the agenda, and that this next regular meeting, that we have a representative from the city to report back on the recommendation that this board made last month as to their progress in implementing each of those things that was passed by this board. If the board passes motions and provides direction and they just thumb their nose at us, then I think that needs to be a matter of record, because when they're coming to us for money that we're in default, they're going to be in default on some things.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Ms. Carter.
I'm concerned about us being faced with a big nut to crack, and we don't have a plan to pay the yearly bills. And I'm not sure as a board member what that operation costs, what that number is, Chair and Board. And I do think that we need a number in order to put our arms around a solution.
I think that's what this motion is. Oh, you're speaking in favor of the motion. Yeah. And this is a moving target. We had a couple-hour meeting yesterday. Ed, Dick, our banker, Mr. Gray, and others over things, and we still don't know. We're getting some good news on the budget, I think, with our costs that are associated with coming in a little lower than what we thought. But
and that's
it's
all
still
great, but I think this
still work in progress. I agree.
Trustees impose fiduciary duty, the highest duty under the law, and if as trustees, that's great that y'all are working not just once a month, but you're working on a regular basis. But I think it's incumbent on us as a board to do something. And I think in a public meeting, a representative of the city needs to come and tell us on the record, and if the newspaper's here, they can report on it, as whether, what they have done or not done with regard to the direction that they've received from this board a month ago. And Mr. Gunther has put a tremendous amount of time and effort, and his work product is top-notch, and I think we ignore it at our peril.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next up, still under open forum, Dottie Dubison. Dorothy Dubison.
Thank you very much for allowing us to give you some input, and I thank you again for the diligence that you bring to the decision-making. I know it's not an easy task to sit there. It's a little simpler for those of us out here to wave flags than it is for you. I want to echo what Fred said. I do believe that the business organization that you set into place is going to determine the long-range success or failure of this park. And it seems that we have constantly been under timelines of quickly making a decision, and we go with whatever the best thing in the moment is without this long consideration and the real detailed study that maybe could be brought up if you did it in a more open process. So I would encourage you to take whatever time you can. And in terms of the committee structure, I think it's imperative that it remain in place, because you as a board have enough to deal with when you come together individually without having 100 citizens calling you individually to deal with issues that really are the committee. And in regard to that, I am asking you that in recognition of the community dialogue and the community economic development goals of the CMPA project, as well as the present and future changing personnel roster of this board, its staff, and contractors, which may happen, I respectfully request that all information regarding vendor and merchandising inquiries and participation requests acquired at any CMPA-associated meeting, workshop, or promotional event be promulgated to the staff of the CMPA for permanent record and filing, and that it would be forwarded and copied to the contract management of the park. I also believe that all inquiries to the management staff of the park and stadium should be by copy be reported with contact information to the staff. Now, what that basically is that there are a number of us who for several years have attended meetings in an attempt to try to develop a vendor program for the local community to be able to participate. And it has been worked through and discussed and always said, we'll get to it later, we'll get to it later. Well, all of a sudden, it's been gotten to, and now there's a merchandising for special events with none of the input really put into it, and none of the individuals who attended all of those meetings being notified. Instead, I received a copy from a third-party event promoter who happened to copy it to me in case I wanted to be a part. In contacting others who've attended meetings and attended the workshops, they also had not received this information. So what I'm trying to have you folks recognize is, if you bring in a new contractor and they have no way of taking the information that has been acquired through all this series of meetings and workshops, we've wasted everyone's time if they're just going to run from the cuff the minute they get it. The names and addresses and contact information of any vendor, whether they are officially registered with the city or not, but if they took time to contact this board or the subcommittees of this board, they should be given the first-hand information at the same point that anyone else would get it, and not hear from it third or fourth hand down the line. So I just respectfully request that you look at setting that policy into place, because too much of the information disappears when an individual or a contract goes away. So if it was generated in the name of the CMPA, it is proprietary business information of the CMPA that should remain in your files, not in someone else's files sitting in their back pocket. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dubison. That is it, Mr. Murray.
Mr. Spears, is there a mechanism in place now that retains that contact information? I know early on we had a website, and other times we had this outreach and that outreach, and I know Ms. Carter has tried to do, in her area outreach, and I'm absolutely in agreement with the speaker that if, all of this work and work product needs to be preserved, and added on, and needs to be a resource that's accessible. I mean, is that in place now?
Currently, for individuals who contact the city directly, either through the Neighborhood Services Department or myself, we retain those records, and they are public information. At meetings that have been held by the EBO program, by Mr. Hawthorne, they have those records, and they have not been turned over to us for safekeeping.
Well, is that you'd be within your purview to request copies of that, not take them from them, but particularly if they're contracts that are in, absolutely, I think that you'd be within your purview to access copies of those.
Certainly, and we could also request that they be made part of the final report for Mr. Hawthorne, which is due in June. that he provide that information via that report.
And those people that contact Leisure Services or any other department of the city or just the city directly, is that something that you could request that copies of that contact information be furnished to you and not just kept in their department?
We can, and we're actually doing a pretty good job of cross-referencing everyone on information that comes in, and we even include the baseball team, because it's generally all three parties that work together on events and activities, and making sure everyone's aware, especially when it comes to calendaring activities, making sure the calendar does not get double booked. And so we're doing a pretty good job of establishing those lines of communication. Right. So we have them in multiple places. I know Kim's office is maintaining those records as well as I am.
Thank you, Mr. Birding. Thank you, Ms. Dubison. Did you have another comment?
Well, I just have a little issue that you're willing to wait until this final report, which was due at the end of March, that now I thought was going to be presented today, and I have no idea what timeline you folks are now operating on, when in fact it should have been part of the monthly report. In February, if there were 15 vendors, then you should know these 15 vendors inquired and planned to move forward. You know, in April, we had a total of 238 vendors on our list. And that information, I mean, I do federal contracts, and I monthly give them the information that is their information. If I drop dead tomorrow, they can move from that point forward. And that's what I'm not seeing happening here. If we have to wait until everything's tied up in a neat little bow, we may be waiting until this mediation stuff is finished. So, you know, all that time is lost between people being able to be in dialogue, and some of them are truly sitting, waiting to be contacted, because that's what they were told. Don't bug us anymore, we'll get back to you. And, you know, Audrey and them have made a nice effort in doing this public relations release recently, but there are some people who really believe that they've made the initial contact and someone is going to call them, so they won't be filing again because they believe they've already made the contact. So I just respectfully request that you try to get the information that is yours. I mean, these people filled out files that said CMPA at the top, the CMPA banner was out in front, and that information should be in your files, I believe. Thank you.
Ms. Carter.
I agree with Dottie, and I'm working with Kim and sent out an email to that entire group of people in the workshop, but I do agree that she should have names and addresses to do a postcard. But I was told, and this is what I'm told, this is what I'm under the assumption that I was supposed to shift everything over to Kim to manage anything having to do with the vendors, and that's pretty much what I did. Anybody interested, I have told them on radio or whatever I'm doing to call Kim at the city. So I just want the board to know that I'm aware of the commitment I made in the effort, and it did go well, but basically we want to make sure it's seamless and everybody's going to the same person, getting the same information, but we have not done a good enough job with the new special license for vendors of getting that out, and one of the reasons is because of a lack of dollars. We're taking the $1,800 that we got the last board meeting and approved, but there's no real effort being done to get that out to that greater community that is looking. And there are people that are waiting to say, I'm waiting for somebody at the CBA, I'm waiting for some knowledge of, okay, now come, I want to be a vendor. And so we're not doing as good a job as we could do.
Kim, you want to address that? I mean, we as this board have contracted neighborhood services to perform this.
We have sent out vendor applications specifically for the grand opening and the other special events that we're going to be permitting for to a little over 350 vendors. Audra sent them out to the list that she had. How many was that?
Maybe 40.
40. So close to 400 vendors have been, we've been in contact with, and they range from food vendors to arts and craft vendors, and they're slowly trickling in. What I'm hearing is the licensing. They have to be licensed. The food vendors have to go through a permitting process with the health department, and that is a big holdup with a lot of the food vendors that are not already established. Same thing with some of the arts and crafts vendors. They are having a difficult time coming up with the proper paperwork to be approved. Now, we are waiting to hear back from our insurance company, because our special events are going to be under a separate insurance umbrella, to find out if we can waive the insurance and the licensing for the arts and crafts. They've already told us no for the food vendors. So, I mean, that may open some more doors once we hear back from them. Did that answer the question?
Well, I think with the some of the questions on the table is these people are applying. I mean, even if we have a record, I think what Ms. Dubison is saying is make sure we have a record of something. We take those services back at some point or whatever, have a record. But other than that, it's y'all's responsibility to manage those as they come in. But make sure that, I guess, Ed has copies of all that that's going on.
I have copies of all of those, and I will definitely give a copy to Ed. The only ones I don't have are the ones that came to the EBO meetings. I don't have any of those.
I assume that's all public record at this point.
And
Ms. Carter?
I think what the other thing you were asking is, we promised to get back to this group, and we have not had a meeting, and partially because we're focused on the grand opening. But we should get back to the group and allow everyone to come together and get that information like we promised to.
And we did a special event packet. We did do that, and I sent that, forwarded it to actually everybody on the list that we had, and I think Audra forwarded it as well. And that kind of outlines what their requirements are. But vending in the park at this point is kind of still on hold. It's just going to be the special events. And we have shared that information with other festival organizers that are contacting us and concert promoters so that they will tap into that list as well. But it is a rather large list of individuals that we share.
Dr. Bolden.
Of those vendors that have applied, how will we know if they've been accepted as a vendor?
We either email them or we make a phone call.
In line with Dottie has just said, will we know as a board X number of vendors have been approved and all that kind of stuff?
If you want to be. I mean, I can definitely tell you right now for the grand opening, I have approved about 26 vendors. And those are the ones that have actually paid their fee and that have actually provided the proper paperwork to actually put them in the event.
Kim, could you get a report to Ed, and he'll go ahead and email that out in the next couple of days? I mean, I know you've already got that in that form, so we'll get it out to the committee. Mr. Murdy?
I appreciate your effort, and I'd like you to really try and focus to make it as easy on as many of these people, because I think my impression is a lot of these people have never done it before, and they need somebody to walk them through it the first time. And the idea about an umbrella policy, I think that's an excellent idea to try and make it available, just like, Magi did, with the bonding program to help some of these people, the first time. That could be a daunting proposition, and it could be very expensive to buy individual policies, whereas if it was a blanket policy, their pro rata share would be, very
Well,
small.
it does cost the city a bit of money as well, the coverage, and that's why we're having a difficult time with the arts and crafts. That's the one we're really trying to get approved. It's $66 per vendor that the city will have to pay to cover those vendors that come out. So if we get hundreds, 50, 60, that is a direct cost that will be expensed to us for the CMPA. So that's something we need to be aware of, and that's just for special events. Now, if it's for,
Is that a one shot?
that is per event.
Per use.
So now, if they're doing, when we start the vending program, the cart vending in the park itself, they will have to provide their own insurance at that point, because that is an ongoing program. It's not a special event program.
Anything else, Kim? Thank you. Dottie?
I would just request that you try to put together some sort of a press release that states clearly who's in charge, what they're doing, what the opportunities are. Because, for instance, I know that the DIB Palafox Market manager received calls from someone here at City Hall, referred a vendor, that was how you got to be a part of the Maritime Park. This is the confusion issue that's going on. We just need to educate everyone. There is a program. This is what it looks like. This is who you contact. This is what you have to do. And the packet that they put together for the merchandising people for special events, once you get your hands on it, does have all those questions. But I just respectfully request that you try to figure out how to get the message out there so that those who are sitting back saying, they said they'd call me back, no, this is the time. Okay? Thank you.
Kim, will you get something out like that, please? Thank you very much. Anything else on that? Ms. Carter?
And I'll work with her.
Thank you. Yeah, make sure that Ms. Carter's certainly got contacts. We can get that out too. Okay, it was mentioned earlier about sunsetting of the committees. I know Councilman Johnson had brought that up. He has had to leave the meeting early apparently. So I throw it back up. I don't know if anybody else was leading that cause on sunsetting. If y'all just want to move on, or we can talk about it.
I move that we take up the issue of sunsetting at the fourth meeting from this one.
Fourth meeting from this one. Was that a motion?
Yeah, that's the motion. I just want to get rid of it.
Anybody have a second on that? That's for like a second. Further discussion on this?
If you don't want to serve on a committee, the
I'm
chairman
sorry.
ought to replace him.
Mr. Baker is come back. He was signing checks. Now he's second the motion. Discussion on the motion to take up sunsetting in September of 2012. Any discussion on that motion?
Why put it off?
Sir?
Why put it off?
You want a sunset?
Well, no, but we ought to resolve it and get
Okay,
rid of
well, make a substitute motion. All I want to do is, if you don't want to serve on the committee, get the chairman to report, appoint a replacement for you. That's all. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to have these subcommittees.
I think what, assuming the purpose of your move, Dr. Jones, are you saying you know, they don't need to be sunset at all? Let's not even talk about it, or?
Well, I would tell Mr. Johnson comes by. He's the one He's the one that brought it up, and I don't see that we have to put it off until 4 weeks. Do it next time or whenever it's appropriate.
Well, he can bring it up if he's back here again.
Well, let's,
We just table it.
as right now, we have a motion on the floor to do a second that we will pick back up sunsetting in September. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
3 against.
Better show a hand.
Let's go. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Unless we have another motion another time to bring it up, we will now talk about sunsetting in September. Committee reports. COR. We've got Mr. Dane in the audience.
Should I keep it short?
Please.
All right, well, we're gaining on it. Obviously, they're working very quickly and diligently to get the amphitheater finished for the June 9th. Obviously, sod's going down, landscaping's going in. Pavers on the front of the stage started going down today with the base material. Concrete's all the way around the back of the amphitheater already with the the entrance road down the east side. The cast stone columns, I'm sure you've seen them. They're almost all the way completed. Inside the back of house is going on, ceiling, roof of the back of house is going on, the panels on the roof of the stage is ongoing. So they're working very diligently. It's a choreographed dance, sometimes well choreographed, sometimes not so well, but that's just a testament of how much work's going on and how much effort that they're putting in. So, you know, looking at their schedule, they're probably a few days behind, but they'll be in good shape for their May 29th completion date, maybe a few days later than that, but it's coming along very well. A few other items, let's see, our pond liner issue. I understand this Friday they're coming in, the subcontractor's coming in to address that issue. So hopefully, you know, mid next week we'll start seeing that going away and getting resolved. They're installing the burp valves and some ballast on the liner to help sink the liner back down. So I know that's been sort of an item of concern, and it's coming to a resolution at the end of this week.
How are we with the rest of the grass right in front of the amphitheater? I know we had some of it was going down, it looked like yesterday. Are we, when will that be completed?
The plan right now is to bring in the next loads of sod next week, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, as they start getting the rest of the hardscaping around the right adjacent to the amphitheater completed at the end of this week, and then that irrigation and softscape can come in beginning of next week. And that gives us, you know, 3 weeks to get that grass established, and I feel confident in that's a good time to get roots down and get the grass established.
The temperature will get roots down. We're not going to kill it on our opening, are we? Please.
Only if we park on it.
Yeah,
No
we
parking
park
in the
on it,
city.
spill
We
gasoline on it.
All
No,
right.
3 weeks. This time of year, we have warm weather, good, you know, growing weather, so the roots should be established.
So we're
in good
3
shape.
weeks from this Saturday opening. Questions of Mr. Dana? Mr. Murdy?
Can
you give me a little bit more detail about the problem with the liner? 'Cause, I mean, I think the fountains are a big asset and, you know.
The fountains
It's been
are
going on for a little while.
right.
What I was told was is that you can't do the fountains until you fix the problem with the liner. Not true?
Well, I think we could have, but did not do it just because they were doing their due diligence to vet what the real problem was and the most efficient, best solution was. And that's been going on.
What is the problem? It leaks?
Well, yeah, we've got water and or gases underneath the liner that floated the liner in those few locations. So until we put the burp valve on and poke a hole in the liner and see what comes out of it, we really don't know. But the figuring is, the educated guesses are that it's mostly groundwater, because the groundwater was at a elevation of about 1 and the permanent pool elevation is at 1.4, so there's a lot of groundwater underneath that pond. The bottom of the pond is at -6 or -7. So that groundwater, you know, dewatering the ground, excavating the pond, and putting the liner on, and groundwater gets pumped out, and then the liner gets put on quickly. That water comes back in. There's some entrained air. Once the water gets pumped out of the ground, there's air in the soil. So it just comes back up as it kind of tries to equalize. So now the situation is poke holes in the liner with a burp valve. It's a one-way valve, so that the water can't go out of the pond, and put ballast on top of the liner, sandbags or Quikrete, to slowly push the water back down, the liner back down, so the water can again equalize and hold it down.
Is this going to be an ongoing problem if we have heavy rains and more groundwater?
Well, we hope not. We hope that with the ballast on the liner.
Well, I mean, you
and
put ballast over the entire liner?
I believe that's most of their plan, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not what I do for a living. So.
Right. And then we've had them on our golf projects that we've seen exactly the same thing happening, and then the solution is basically what they're doing.
Well, is that part of what their subcontract covers, or are we into contingencies now?
I haven't been approached with that from HOR yet on costs or contingency dollars yet. You know, you can certainly say again, like
a problem that you faced professionally before.
Well, sure. I mean, it's a matter of what do you know about the subsurface conditions, and I don't know if they're
be dewatered initially. That tells you something.
Right, and it's also are there any? Did they know of any decomposing organic matter underneath the excavation level that maybe is promoting some gases? I don't know. I haven't reviewed all of the site borings that were taken years ago.
Having it resolved?
They're going to install the valves on Friday this week, and then they'll be putting the ballast on after that. You know, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and then it'll slowly float back down, sink back down.
And what about the fountain?
Soon after that, next week. And that should only be, fountain should only take a day or two.
Put multiple valves throughout the, or is that?
Well, they've got to do it on only the two that are out,
okay.
2 or 3. You have to do it above water. It's got to be done dry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Thanks. No. Yes.
For him.
Ms. Carter.
You said a week ago you sent the final data that we needed for the on-site percentage of participation. Can you give a report to the board on that, what your findings was, you and Mike, perhaps?
I can't recall the results off the top of my head now,
Mike?
to be honest with you.
Do you know what the results of that survey was that you sent to me? Because I never got it.
Can you?
I sent it to your Maritime Park email address. If you will give me another email address, I'll send it to you. I was just gathering the data, giving you the sheet, but y'all do what you want.
So what you gave me was sheets. You didn't give me any percentages or anything. It was,
I got answers to every question that was on that piece of paper that y'all gave me.
Did you get a copy of that, Ms. Carter?
No, I did not, but I'll look.
What is your more preferable email that we can?
acadvertising@cox.net. But I would like a number. I don't want just raw data. I want to know, you just gave me pieces of paper and.
I sent the questionnaire to whoever, y'all reviewed it, said send it out, I sent it out, and give it to them.
Okay. I'll check on that and see what he gave me.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Any other questions, Mr. Dana?
I'd like to get a copy.
Mr. Baker, was that sent out to her?
I do recall seeing it when the email came, and it was just the actual answers from the individual subs. It wasn't a tabulation or anything.
Did it go? I don't remember seeing that. Did you send that to us?
I can't recall everyone who's on there, but I can send it.
Maritime. Oh, okay. Your Maritime email, I know that gets confusing. Anything else, Mr. Dana? Thank you, sir. Ed's going to resend that. Design build team.
He set it off. I'll answer the question.
Anything, Mr. Horton?
Would you like to add any discussion on the pond liner solution?
Yeah, Mr. Murding's a maritime lawyer. He's interested in that.
Yeah, he wants to be on the pond committee.
It's been sunset.
We're due to install the vert valves on Friday. It's 48-hour cure cycle on the adhesives, so we'll punch the holes on Monday, start working the ballast to sink the liner down, which should take a day or two, and then I think a day or two after that we'll have the fountains installed. The fountains are on the site over there, and what I didn't want to do is put the fountains in and then be in the way of our cure for the bubbles. So we've been assured it'll only take a day or two to get the fountains in. The power's out there, so I'm hoping into next week we won't see anything protruding out of the pond except maybe a fountain.
Thank you, Mr. Horton.
You were shaking your head no on the ballast. Is it
We're
just going
gonna
to be
ballast.
localized?
We're going to ballast. It won't be completely ballast. It'll ballast the areas as necessary to get the two well backs down.
We appreciate it. Appreciate it again.
And let me say one more thing. Our people we've been talking to think there's a higher potential that it's air than water from, as Steve was describing, we de-watered and the groundwater came back up, it has pushed air. We're hoping it's water. That'll be the easier to resolve. But we won't know till probably Monday when we punch a hole. Okay?
Thank you again for leaving Ricky out there, and everything looks like it's moving in the right direction. A few days behind, but we'll get there. With that, we'll move on to administration, Ed.
If I could call on the people who are not here any longer. Mr. Flaherty was to give a report. You do have a schedule of upcoming events that was passed out in front of you. Most of our activities right now are focusing on the grand opening, and I'm sure you'll update us on that at that point in time. Otherwise, you've signed all the checks, and that's all I have.
Design Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Design Development Committee did meet on May the 10th. Unfortunately, there was a lack of a quorum, so no action could be taken. You heard Mr. Baldwin present the plans for the additional scoreboard, and Mr. Swibel, who was a member of the committee, presented a motion concerning an additional plaque, and he would like to tell us about it right now.
I think better when I sit down, so pardon my
welcome, Bob.
Sitting down here. I have lost one of my senses, so if I appear to be loud, bear with me, okay? And again, I'd like to speak, and thank you for your time, I'd like to be fair, and I'm all about fairness. Again, some 42 years ago, let me tell you where I'm coming from, where my head is at. 42 years ago, Uncle Sam mailed me a one-way flight ticket to San Diego and asked not to take luggage along. And I see Mr. Smith smiling. He's been there. When I walked out of that airport in San Diego, it's still the same way. You walk through a glass wall before you set foot on the sidewalk, and you walk through some glass doors. Behind, on the curb side of that glass door, unbeknownst to a scared man like myself, I was 23 years old, and I was scared because I had no clue what was happening. I walked through those doors, and somebody grabbed my collar in the back and lifted up my belt. He carried me 20 feet to the bus, and it had U.S. Navy on the side of the door. From that, why am I making this point? From that point on, I was ingrained, just like every military person is, about team membership. There is no such thing as an individual. It's all a team players. Everybody is supported by people in the back, whether it's your wife, whether it's your kids, whether it's a professional entity, you're all supported by a team, which is what I want to underline with my presentation. I scanned the minutes of the design committee dated March 20th. I was at MacDill Air Base during that month, and I did not attend that meeting. It was presented, it was decided at that meeting about the names that are going to appear on the plaque, which is really what I want to talk to you about. It obviously became obvious to me that there were some names missing on that plaque, and in particular the subcommittees. Those people, again, support the CMPA. They have from the onset, ever since Mr. Todd asked for volunteers from the subcommittees. There are some names on the current plaque that should be on there. So I've asked for sponsorship of a motion because I cannot make a motion onto this board unless I have a sponsor for my motion. But if I am allowed to read, and it's pretty wordy, but I'm trying to be clear, and I've screened this over and over again with not only my set of eyes, but also my Chief of Naval Operation, quote, unquote. My motion reads as follows: to generate a second plaque, the second plaque. Again, why a second plaque? Because I don't want it to be a time frame. I want to do things right, okay? And if I present a motion for a second plaque, I want to do things right, whatever time frame it takes. And I don't know, and I'm going off my, my motion here. Let me read the motion first. To generate a second dedication plaque that lists the names of all quote-unquote subcommittee members not listed on the original dedication plaque, including their lifetime, quote, earned titles, unquote, and must have been a member of these subcommittees for more than 1 year at the time of the park opening. In other words, June 9th of next month, go back a year, and if they weren't part of that subcommittees, they are not going to be on this plaque, the second plaque. In other words, they must have been a subcommittee member more than 1 year, or a year at least. The names will also include, must have been a member of the subcommittees for more than 1 year at the time of the park opening. The names will also include, and now I'm going to put the right-hand person of Ed Spears in that plaque as well, and that is, of course, Nicole Ransom, who has been the coordinator for more than 1 year of this project. I believe she is entitled to being mentioned and given the thanks for it as well. You and I have been in many, many meetings, and certainly I have. Every time we ask for numbers, Ms. Ransom speaks up. She knows those numbers, okay? She has worked with Ed on this project from the get-go, as far as I'm concerned, so I think her name needs to be mentioned on some sort of plaque. And that's my motion. I'm hoping to get a sponsor. If I don't, that's fine with me. Again, I'm all about fairness, and I am too old to get upset. Okay? It's just not going to happen anymore. And I've thanked you before, but I had no idea that we were going to have another design meeting, and I decided I'm going to ask for a motion in my design meeting, but we didn't have a quorum, so I couldn't. So I'm asking for that motion to be in front of this board, and I hope to get a second. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Discussion?
I'd like to ask them, even though they didn't have a committee forum, I think this falls within the purview of that committee, and I'd like to get the input of that committee first.
We really, we took it almost for information. We didn't discuss it really too much because the plaque has already been designed And then Mr. Schweibel is asking for a second plaque, and which is probably a duplication of a lot of names, but he is a volunteer member of the Design Development Subcommittee, wishes to have he himself and other members of the subcommittees listed. But we took no action.
Is that a subject, because you put no time frame on it, is that a subject that would be appropriate for your committee to discuss? I think that's what it, you know.
Well, as you know, my personal preference when we started the plaque business to begin with was only to have the 3 chairmen and the 3 mayors and have no one else. Then people added the committees of the CMPA, and then the city council added the city council members. So he is not asking to change that. He's asking for an additional plaque. And we don't even know where the first plaque is going, as far as I know, and where would a second plaque go and who would see it.
And that's the reason I thought it might be appropriate to have at least discussed by the committee.
We can certainly do that.
I think it would be premature to do anything until your committee looks at it.
Sure, we can certainly do that.
My thought.
Because we will have another meeting, because we're going to be in existence.
Not sunsetting.
Ms. Carter.
And I'm just asking just for information. So would this include, because I think the volunteers, and exclude the existing board members? I'm just asking the plaque, what was the vision for this plaque?
And I'm sorry, I came in on the tail end of that. I step out, but I believe he was saying all committee members,
subcommittee members,
who are not on the first plaque.
We probably will ask Mr. Schweibel probably to sort of design or come up with some plan with names, a list of all the names, so that we can discuss it at our next subcommittee meeting.
All right. You can address it at Dr. Jones's committee?
Referred to committee.
Dr. Jones, you have anything else under?
No, sir. That completes my report.
Operations audit, I understand there's not a committee meeting. Anybody have anything on that? Equal business opportunity, Ms. Carter.
We did not meet, and because most of the things that we had to do is going to happen after the next board meeting. We are working on the final information for the report, and I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Ms. Carmen Diaz returned it.
Okay, I think we're good. We do have clear next Wednesday in this room at the 23rd at 1:30. Other than that, I was going to say we were not going to have another meeting between now and our June 9th grand opening. And again, I encourage everybody to attend. We're going to, you'll get a formal invitation, I think, goes out next week. But all-day event, the presentation itself right now is scheduled between 12 and 1. Free hot, okay, Bob, just a minute. Free hot dogs will be in the stadium from 11 to 1. We have now a hamburger eating contest. I understand it's been added. We have a lot of activities, as you know, and a lot of different acts all day long. We're going to conclude with the Charlie Daniels Band. It's our last entertainment, followed by fireworks that Saturday night. So lots of good stuff going on here. Some posters.
Did they confirm whether Kurt Franklin was going to be here or not? Did they confirm? Who's Kurt Franklin, you said?
Kurt Franklin, not confirmed or not attending?
I haven't heard. They're not on the list, so I don't think they'll be there. It's right there.
Shamar Allen and the Underdogs, Kate Rogers, and Antoine Knight, the Gills, Modern Eldorados, music all day. Then the Charlie Daniels Band, fireworks. What? I see no new additions. I'm not sure who that is.
Is this the same?
Your brother gave me 2 of those, though. Ms. Scott.
I was just asking him, is that the same poster, just larger as the one that was sent out That as the one that was distributed during the press conference?
It has
Any
been
of the
updated.
acts changed?
It's been updated with new sponsors.
Oh, but none of the acts have changed?
She's got them right there.
All right.
I just had a
Mr.
question
Smith.
for him. Is it possible to get this flyer and all the information by email, because that's a better way of advertising?
I
and
would love to
spreading the
do
word?
that, yes.
Okay, I would like that. And the second question, we mentioned earlier emails. Are there emails going out with the CMPA address and also with the preferred address? I very seldom look at the CMPA because I presume I'm getting everything to my main email. So I'm not missing anything, because earlier someone mentioned that items were sent out via the CMPA email.
We have one email group for the board.
Okay, great.
And that should have both of your emails in
Okay.
it, so it should be duplicated.
But you will miss some. If somebody were to look up your email and send it to that CMPA address, if you don't look at it occasionally, it'll pile up in there. Anything else on the grand opening? Mr. Baker?
I just want to thank you for taking this on. I realize in a sunshine group like we are, it's pretty impossible to have several different people, and thanks for taking this on, along with a lot of other people. It's a big project and a lot of work, but thanks for doing this.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. We had a separate committees, set up on that, and we have these sponsors, as you see now. And I want to thank Pensacola Sports Association and the TDC, which stepped up for a majority of these funds. As you know, not a penny's coming from our budget, and we had to raise over $100,000, and we've done that. And I think Kim spent it wisely, and we'll have a great event out there. Still waiting on some final confirmation of some dignitaries, but we ought to have some big names coming in, and Mr. Reeves might even be there, it says.
Hey, as long as there's no taxpayer money involved.
No taxpayer, no, free hot dogs.
I do want to say.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
I do want to say, as far as that plaque business is concerned, I know we've been plaqued and replaqued and what have you, but I think the least we can do as far as those volunteers are concerned and other staff members and what have you is, the famous Irish politicians wooden plaque, plastic cover. I think a chairman can issue a plaque, and we don't have to go through an act of Congress and worry about where it's going to be put up. It can be put up in that person's office or their home or what have you. It might be, I just throw that out as the spirit of unity, harmony, and cooperation.
Yes, sir. Ms. Carter.
Yeah, I agree that that's a nice acknowledgement coming from you, and maybe get all three chairmen to sign. That would be even better. Keepsake. Want to talk a little bit about the grand opening. I get a lot of people calling me, when is it? And Chairman, since you were involved with that, how did we do the marketing? Did we market with the independent? When are we sending out the independent voice, or is going to be an ad in that? I mean, how are we getting to those people that help us, with the referendum? Are we sending an email blast to the same group of people that supported us? It's important that we distribute dollars throughout the whole media, and I just don't know anything about how that happened.
Well, and getting screamed at by Kim in a meeting, I slashed their marketing budget. We were raising every penny this, and we had, $18,000 for marketing. I mean, it's hard to go to somebody to raise money for that when we should get a lot of PRs. We had our press conference last time. We're still pushing that out there, getting as much word of mouth as we can, including at some of the ball games, getting stuff out there. So there's a couple ads being run, I think, Kim, is that right? But
all our advertisement has been sponsored. We are working with Magic 106, Cat Country, all of this, all our print that's a sponsor, that's deluxe. So everything that you're going to see and hear, we didn't pay a dime for.
So what are we spending $100,000 on?
I can tell you that. I can start with our entertainment at $75,000. I can tell you our fireworks were $10,000. I can tell you the balloon rides were $8,000. I can go down every penny of it because We cut a lot of it. We have 2 balloons that are out there giving rides all day long. We got sponsors. Thanks to Hoare Construction sitting here, they sponsored us. You can look down, you can go through the bottom of this and see the people that we had to go beg, borrow, and steal from to get that raised. But it adds up fast. None of it's going to pay staff, or none of it's going to pay anybody's salary. It's 100% to get the entertainment. We have 18,000 just in kids' activities.
And the hot dogs are free, but you have to bring your own bun.
Yeah, no, well, I'll say this: there's a lot of vendors. It added. Let me tell you something. The first budget, and I think Ed was in that meeting, that somebody surfaced was $380,000 to do this and do it right. And I just said, listen, we can go out and raise some. We can't raise that kind of money. And I will say, some of the people that are sponsoring, it's not like, well, why don't you get that money and put it in our budget? That, they were sponsored to be this grand opening, and that's where we ended up with that.
Parking?
But as of this, parking, we haven't quite got that far. I said you're going to have an invitation. You will probably get this committee a reserved parking space for that day.
I mean, is it going to be paid parking? In the private area, of course. They run their own thing.
Kim's going to charge for parking for a funeral right now, because she's been directed to raise money as much as she can by us, as Mr. Gunther said. We have a meeting, is it Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, to finalize the last items of this. But there's going to be, people will be charging for parking out here that day, I'm sure. Ms. Carter.
I just want to, that being the case, I want to make sure all those people, and I'll help, and I'll do postcards sent to all the special people that help make this happen, and then give them a personal invite, because some people are looking for that.
Please.
Because I think that we're missing some folks who just need that. I may not need it, and I know you don't, Chair, but there's some people that need you to say, I need you to be at this event on the 9th.
Well,
and I will help do that for free. I'm not, but I just don't want us to.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Carter. Can you come? Our meeting is at what time, Kim?
It's at 4, but I can email you.
Will you come to? Can you come to that meeting this coming Tuesday?
The one coming up before the meeting on Wednesday?
No, I can't. What if we sunshine it? Notice that we're not hiding anything anymore.
I will say there have been postcards going out. I received one in the mail that had this date on it. I don't know if you.
I thought we'd been getting stuff out, but if you're telling me somebody we're not reaching, let's hear about it.
I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm with you.
I don't care.
I'm with you. We have restricted. Thank you, Reverend May. We slash as much as we could out of marketing. That was an easy thing to do, and Kim has gone out and done a good job of getting these radio sponsors and others. But if you'll notice that meeting you can attend, we're not hiding anything back from the media anymore. We were trying to keep so we'd have a good press release on the bands that we negotiated with. But if you'll come to that, and if there's an element we're missing, let's get them.
Yeah, let's just make it happen.
Anything else on grand opening? Mr. Murdy, you want a balloon ride?
No. I'm afraid you cut it loose. I just want to thank the
We get
committee
parachutes with
and,
those.
and ask, somebody told me the other day, every time they see press releases in the paper, it says Community Maritime Park, I think that the Vince Swibbs part has been just forgotten. And I'm thankful that that's right at the top in big letters on this poster. And I know the News Journal, all the news that fits, we print. If there's any room left over after the ads, and I know they would cut stuff like that. I would just encourage, this committee, any of us when we deal with the executive director, anytime we talk about it, make sure we keep the mayor's name in the park on this.
We appreciate that, Mr. Murdy, and I will say one of his sons, and there are a lot of the Wibbs family will be there, but one of his sons will be playing in the stadium that evening. They're not. No. We didn't work that out.
No. So no, he's not going to be there at this time.
Perhaps. I take it back. But there's Mark Wibbs has a band called Mass Confusion that I thought we'd left it, that he was going to play after the fireworks, but apparently it's not worked out. But all right. Anything else on grand opening? All right. Thank you. Bob?
Just quickly, I just realized what we did as far as moving up the decision on the plaque. If we don't have another quorum in the design committee, which is a possibility, and a strong one at that, I have made plans for about a year to be gone from this area for 4 months. And it's going to start on the 9th of next month, soon after the park opening. And I apologize for that, but if we could have a design committee meeting, Dr. Jones, prior to that, that would be very helpful. And by the way, if we can't have a quorum by the 9th, again, my goal is to do things right, regardless of time frame. Okay, I am not committed to a date that we must do this and we must do that by on something this important. So if we can wait until October time frame, fine.
Where are you going, Bob?
Leadville, Colorado, 9,700 feet high.
For 4 months.
4 months.
Sounds cool.
What's your first step?
44 degrees at night, 72 during the day. Thank you.
Fun. Have fun. Anything else come before the board? Mr. Scott?
I just have one announcement on Wednesday, May 23rd. Olivia Scott will be singing the national anthem.
Oh, we have a game that night.
Yeah, we have a game that night.
That's your daughter?
Yeah, that's my daughter.
And if you've ever heard her daughter, I've heard her daughter sing at Pensacola Children's Chorus before, and that will be a treat for all. So our committee won't last until the game, I can tell you that. So you'll have time after that. Will be hopefully less than an hour. Anything else come from the board? Thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.